Chocolate cake. Chocolate cake traces its roots to the 18th century, when cocoa powder became widely available after new grinding methods made chocolate cheaper and easier to bake with. Early versions were dense and bitter because sugar was expensive and cocoa was unrefined. The modern chocolate cake took shape in the early 1900s when baking powder and processed cocoa created lighter textures. Dutch processed cocoa, treated with alkali, gave cakes a darker color and smoother flavor. Chocolate cakes can range from light and fluffy to rich and fudgy, depending on fat content and mixing method. The deeper the cocoa and the more fat used, the more intense and moist the final cake becomes. Vanilla cake. Vanilla cake may seem simple, but it has one of the most complex histories. Vanilla comes from orchids native to Mexico, first cultivated by the Totonac people long before Europeans arrived. For centuries, vanilla was rare outside Central America because the flowers required hand pollination. Vanilla cake became popular in the 19th century as sugar and butter became household staples. Real vanilla adds warmth and aroma rather than sweetness. The flavor is subtle, so texture matters more than anything. A good vanilla cake is judged by how soft, even, and tender the crumb feels with every bite. Red velvet cake. Red velvet cake originated in the United States in the early 1900s. Its reddish color originally came from a chemical reaction between natural cocoa powder and acidic ingredients like buttermilk and vinegar. During World War II, bakers used beet juice to enhance the color when food dyes were scarce. The cake became iconic after a New York hotel popularized it as a luxury dessert. Red velvet sits somewhere between chocolate and vanilla in flavor. Its smooth texture and slight tang are what truly define it, not just the color. Cheesecake. Cheesecake is far older than most people realize. Versions of it were served in ancient Greece as early as 2,000 years ago, often to athletes during the Olympic Games. The modern cream cheese version developed in the United States in the late 19th century after the invention of commercial cream cheese. Cheesecake isn't baked like a regular cake. It sets slowly, relying on eggs and fat for structure. The result is dense, rich, and silky. The higher the fat content, the smoother and more luxurious the texture becomes. Carrot cake. Carrot cake became popular during times of sugar shortages, especially in Europe during World War II. Carrots were used as a natural sweetener because they contain more sugar than most vegetables. Medieval carrot puddings eventually evolved into the spiced cake we know today. Oil is usually used instead of butter, giving carrot cake a moist and tender crumb. Spices like cinnamon and nutmeg add warmth, while cream cheese frosting balances the sweetness. Despite being vegetable-based, carrot cake is known for richness rather than lightness. Pound cake. Pound cake dates back to the 1700s and gets its name from its original recipe. 1 pound each of flour, butter, sugar, and eggs. This simple formula made it easy to remember before written recipes were common. Early pound cakes were heavy and dense, designed to last several days without refrigeration. Modern versions adjust the ratios to create a softer crumb. Pound cake doesn't rely on chemical leaveners. Its structure comes entirely from eggs and butter, giving it a tight, velvety texture. Sponge cake. Sponge cake was developed in Europe during the Renaissance and became popular once eggs could be whipped by hand efficiently. Unlike butter cakes, sponge cake contains little to no fat. Air beaten into the eggs is what gives it volume. This makes the cake light, airy, and springy. Sponge cake absorbs liquids extremely well, which is why it's often used in layered desserts with syrups and creams. Its flavor is mild, but its texture is what makes it versatile. Ice cream cake. Ice cream cake became popular in the mid-20th century alongside the rise of home freezers. It combines baked cake layers with frozen ice cream, merging two desserts into one. Unlike traditional cakes, ice cream cakes rely on freezing rather than baking for structure. The contrast between soft cake and firm ice cream is the main appeal. Temperature plays a crucial role. Too cold, and the cake is hard to cut. Too warm, and it loses its shape entirely. Black Forest cake. Black Forest cake comes from Germany and is named after the Black Forest region. Traditional versions are made with chocolate sponge cake, cherries, whipped cream, and a splash of cherry brandy. The dessert became internationally famous in the early 20th century. Authentic Black Forest cake balances sweetness with acidity from the cherries. The whipped cream keeps it light despite the rich chocolate layers. Each bite combines soft sponge, juicy fruit, and airy cream. Tres Leches cake. Tres Leches cake originated in Latin America and became popular in the mid-1900s. The name means 3 milks, referring to the mixture of evaporated milk, condensed milk, and whole milk poured over the cake. The sponge absorbs the liquid without collapsing. This creates an ultra-moist texture that feels almost custard-like. Despite being soaked, the cake remains light because of its airy structure. Tres Leches is less about sweetness and more about richness and softness.